Reckon Dog says, "Hey Phil, what do you think will happen with the PRS core guitars now that the S2 is much closer to it? Would they get new features or just some more be more obscure?" I actually think some of the refinements in the core already happened. We saw them change to the plastic tuning keys. Obviously, everybody has tuning heads. I'm sorry, on the tuning keys, and making them more like a bird. As much as that sounds silly, saying it out loud, like, whoa, plastic tuning heads, heads on tuning keys is more premium. But in my experience, when you're talking about brands, and that's what Paul Reed Smith is, it's a brand. It's a high-end brand that brings in a customer that is wanting either the prestige of that brand. That's a factor why people buy PRSs. Look, they're called doctor lawyer guitars. And I don't think that's fair because I think engineers make a lot of money too. And I think more engineers play guitar than doctors and lawyers, but I could be wrong. But my point is that Paul Reed Smith built a prestigious brand, a premium brand, and he wants to sell guitars in that premium brand. And so he's probably aware of something that we're all not aware of, which is he probably knows what really drives the purchasing of us more than we even do. And if I was gonna guess, I would say that owning a core PRS is more of a bragging right than it has a physical quality to it, because we know that because he doesn't make crappy SEs and he doesn't make crappy S2s. I mean, they're all really good to the point where you're like, when people go, oh, my core is so much better than my SE, I'm like, it's better. Is it so much better? I don't know if so much better is something I can actually attest to. I think it's better. I agree with you. I'm not arguing. But so much better? I think I think aesthetic changes to the core, which is what I think he's done recently with the tuning key change and maybe some finish changes and stuff, is enough to push people into the core because they just want it. We've talked about how stupid we all are. Not all of you, me, how stupid I am to go want a binding on a Gibson Les Paul. The studio is fine, especially with a maple cap. It's really at that point with the same pickups as the same guitar, but to have the binding is a big deal. I don't think they're any different than Paul Reed Smith. I think Paul Reed Smith is going to be like, yeah, if you want the core, it's going to be a look, so much so than it is the sound quality, because we know the pickups are going to be a big driver of the sound quality in those guitars. And of course, holding back the bridges and the old tuning keys, what are they, the number 2s versus the 3s on the S2s is enough to make people go, I need more premium. There is that. So I think that might be enough. I think what S2 is really about is them answering the question to the problem we were all having with, which is what is really different about SE and S2? Because I have to tell you, one thing that was getting really tough as someone who makes content to explain to you without reading their ad copy, okay? And I'm so glad I don't do it because, like for instance, on my S2 video, Sweetwater has the specs on the Satin 24 wrong. They're saying it's a pattern regular neck. It's not. I measured it. It's pattern thin. So thank goodness. I usually go to Sweetwater for my specs, but theirs was wrong, and I learned that after I made the video because I trust my own tools. But here's my point. My point is that it was getting really hard making videos explaining the difference between SE and S2 without saying that one stupid thing that I hate saying, which is this one's made in Indonesia and this one's made in the USA. And if you buy the USA one, people in USA are happy, and if you buy the Indonesia one, people in Indonesia are happy. I mean, it gets really hard to qualify that as a reason for purchase, And I know some of you guys, mostly us, maybe us people like me in the US, that are old school, focus on that because we're Americans and we're like, America, all right? But remember, I talk to the internet, and the internet, like I said earlier, is the world. This group of people sitting here, 1,000 people plus, you're not 1,000 Americans, not even close. I bet you if I'm lucky, 65% of you are from America, maybe 70, which is a good amount, but not all. The truth is, not everybody has the same value points as us, okay? So because of that, it gets hard for me as a channel that's trying to be respected for taking the time to explain the actual differences in the guitar to just say, well, this one's made in one country and this one's made in another, and that's the value proposition difference. The SEs were making that tough because when somebody would ask me an honest question of what's really the difference in the quality of an SE versus an S2? And I'm like, well, they have different finishes. It's polyurethane versus versus nitrocellulose lacquer now that the SE or S2s have nitro. Pickups were the same. Bridge was the same. The S2s have locking keys. But this is where it's tough. Somebody goes, well, why is it double? I'm like, I don't know. Labor? It's the American labor. It's double, right? It's more. It costs more to build it in the USA. That's true. And as a patriotic American, I'm like, yeah, pay that labor. Those are my people. Pay them, right? That's not a thing I can attest to quality. That's a thing I can attest to the value I find. I find value in supporting, like I said, I like to support my local restaurants more than the chain restaurants. I like to support my local work more than, work from on the other side of the country, much less outside the country. I mean, that's us. Everybody's going to be the same that way. You want, people in Italy want people in Italy to be working, right? People in America want people working in America. So, but that's not something I can qualify in a video as that's value in that aspect. But in equality, when I'm A/Bing product quality, it's almost impossible to come up with an answer. So having S2 level up a little bit was a smart decision. And the reality is this: they upped the prices about $250 a guitar. That doesn't matter. Here's why it doesn't matter. $2,200, somebody's like, they were $2,000, 22, that's ridiculous. It's not really that. They were $2,000 and almost like $1,000 SE, and now they're $2,200 and they're leveled up from an SE. So is it double the quality of an SE? No. But it's more, 30% more. I don't know how to value it. I don't know how to put a percentage on it, but it's more valuable because it has more valuable pieces in it. Like I said, I think the finish, I like the nitro finish on it. But I mean, that's just a preference. I don't really like nitro finishes, but I like the finish that PRS is using on that. It feels really good in my hands, and I like it on my arm. I like the way it feels. So to answer your question, I think the level up the S2 was a perfect strategy that doesn't really require the core guitars to be leveled up next. Your decision is simple now. Do you want the core guitar, that premium guitar, or do you just want a power smith that sounds great? If you enjoyed this podcast clip, you can watch the entire episode by clicking the link in the description or streaming it on iTunes, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. You can also join it live every week, Friday at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and I hope to see you there. Until next time, know your gear.